Welcome to Freedom and Glory, Tales of American Spirit, where we share inspiring stories of resilience, courage, and hope. Join us as we celebrate the people and moments that define our nation's values and remind us that even the smallest actions can spark lasting change. And here's your hosts, Liz Morris and Bill LeMay.
With Constitution Day just around the corner, we're joined by Kirk Higgins, Vice President of Content at the Bill of Rights Institute. Kirk is an actual historian, and he's here to share how we can all help shape the next generation of informed, engaged citizens by inspiring action through knowledge. Tell us about yourself, Kirk.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Excited to be here. My name is Kirk Higgins. I've been at the Bill of Rights Institute for about 11 years now, which is exciting. I'm originally from Indiana and found my way out to the Washington, D.C. area doing history and education. So my focus and background is on early American history, so founding period. But at the Bill of Rights Institute, I get to do a whole lot of other things, which is a lot of fun.
What is the Bill of Rights Institute?
Yeah, so the Bill of Rights Institute is an educational nonprofit. We work with teachers across the country to produce civics, history, and government resources for classrooms. So all of it's available at no charge to the teacher. We're just here to try to equip them with the best possible resources we can and try to tell the story of the United States in a way that is engaging and exciting for students.
Well, I got to ask you, Kirk, obviously you feel there's a need for this. I've seen a lot of videos online. A lot of folks don't know a whole lot about the Bill of Rights or what they are. Would you agree? And how big of a problem is that?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, especially with the way that our country is founded, right, which is about self-governance, that each generation needs to learn these skills. And that goes back to the founding. In fact, even in some of the earliest founding documents, in the Constitution for 1780 of Massachusetts, for example, there's a call for education and that the importance of education, particularly education around what it means to live in a republic, is there. And so it's one of those things that we need to continue to push and help students to understand, to grapple with, to see what it is to actually engage in self-governance, which is hard. It's really hard. We're living at a time now of partisanship where things are pretty tense. And so the more that we can equip students to understand what it is to engage with their fellow citizens, what it is to go out in their communities and make a difference, and what it is to appreciate founding principles of liberty and equality and natural rights, then we can equip them to make a difference and to continue on this great American experiment.
Are civics still taught in school? I mean, and how is that?
Yeah.
I assume the partisan, nature of what's happening now kind of makes it hard for some teachers to.
Sure. Yeah.
Comforting for them, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is a challenge. In civics is still taught. Certainly, it's not required in every state, but it's taught in most. And students are getting exposed. The way that we think about civics too is that it's sort of there's a civic component to everything you're learning when you're learning history, when you're learning government. And it's a hard thing for teachers, especially with as many, sensitive topics as exist out there that people get upset about, or people have interest in, or people have different perspectives on. We work with teachers across the country who are just dedicated to trying to do the best for their students that they can. And they want to talk about some of these things. And so we try to equip them with ways of engaging in conversations, even, sensitive conversations, because they're all important. And by the way, it's what kids want to talk about. Kids don't just want to talk about boring, uncontroversial stuff. They want to go right to the heart of the most controversial thing that's being talked about. But we need to do it in a way that's responsible and in a way that's not politically driven or politically motivated, but in a way that's going to equip students to think for themselves and to be able to engage in those different conversations in a way that's truthful and honest and respecting their fellow citizens.
Well, how do you do that? Excuse me, to make it engaging? Why is it important to that student in the classroom? But you're also up against, you mentioned the partisanship. There's an ideology that runs through our education system. So are you bucking that as well? And when you talk about being sensitive, is that what you're talking about? That sensitivity?
Sensitivity, I think there's a lot of ways to think about it. I think it's just, there are a lot of topics where people have a lot of opinions, and those opinions can be difficult for a teacher to navigate. And, for us, we just try to look to the founding of the United States and the intellectual tradition that it comes from, and try to produce resources that highlight how special and unique that founding period was, and how powerful the principles are that motivated both the American Revolution and then the drafting of the Constitution, and then find ways of making that relevant for students. It's easy for students to look at that and say, well, that was, almost next year, 250 years ago. Why does that matter to me? Why does it matter to my life? Those founders didn't have the technology that we have or anticipate the kind of government that would exist now. And that's just not true. The founding principles, things like separation of powers, things like, our civic virtues of humility, courage, responsibility, all of those are important lessons for students to understand and grapple with, because it's all about what it actually means to engage in a community, engage with their fellow citizens. So we try to go back to those founding principles, those first things, and then build from there to find relevant connections for students so that they can see why these things are still important to them, and why, the words of the Declaration of Independence still hold meaning and are still tremendously important, and shape the way that our country functions.
So the content and how you engage with students, it's not just around the Bill of Rights. It's much broader than that.
Yeah, correct. So we do everything from U.S. history, so all the way from sort of the even early colonial days up to the present. We also do government. We just released a new government textbook, in fact. So looking at all of the ins and outs of how the government works, and what its relationship is to civil society. Then we also do character education. So what does it mean to demonstrate good character, practice civic virtues, like I mentioned, humility, courage, integrity, responsibility. And through all three of those things, through history, government, and character, all of that comes together to develop responsible citizens who can go out and be thoughtful patriots, and be individuals who are going to engage in their communities, but in a way that is consistent with with the intentions and the shape of the founding, and the Constitution.
Well, I find that stuff fascinating, but I know we've kind of lost touch with. I have a little kid in elementary school, and what they don't know, I mean, they don't even know the states, much less the Constitution at this point. It's really quite frightening, Kirk. It is. I don't understand how, if you were driving and you didn't know what the posted speed limit is, anybody could pull you over. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what your rights are. And that's what the Constitution is all about. Do kids understand that? It seems even on the college level, they don't really understand that.
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of room for growth, and that there's a lot of different, including there are always studies that are coming out that are showing the deficit in knowledge, and I think that's why it's so important for us to continue to push, to help good teachers get in front of good students and help them develop this knowledge, because it's critically important. And there are signs of students being more and more engaged, in lots of different factors, but what I think is most important, in Federalist 48, James Madison wrote about this, that the Constitution is a mere parchment barrier, right? It's nothing except what we put into it and the links that we'll go to defend it. And so in that way, that's why it's critically important that students know these things. Like you said, like knowing the speed limit, knowing the rules of the road. It's critical that students know their rights and responsibilities so that they can be the defenders of them, and so that they can ensure that we're holding the government accountable, and while also, standing up and defending jealously, our rights, which is critically important.
Now, how do you teach the Constitution? The debate continues. There's the originalist viewpoint, and there's those that, well, it's a living, breathing, evolving document. I wish my mortgage was that way. Well, maybe not today because of the interest rates, but I mean, how do you present that? Because you have these, and they're legitimate points of view.
Mm-hmm.
How do you present that, and how do the teachers present that? How do you help them do that?
What we try to do is to equip students to be able to engage in those debates and understand what's going on in all of them. So when we teach Supreme Court cases, we teach the entire case. We teach what the majority opinion was, what the dissent was, and what the outcome of the case was, as a way to engage students and say, look, smart people are disagreeing about this. Why? For us, it comes down to that original framing. We think there's something important about the Constitution, the way it was structured, why it was written the way that it was written. But equipping students to be able to make that decision is what's key for us. And so giving them the tools to be able to engage in those debates, to thoughtfully see how these different philosophies are playing out, and to not be blindsided or surprised when they come across something new, but instead exposing them to all of these different arguments so that they can see the shapes that they take, the directions that they go, and that, that the interpretation of the Constitution is something that's constantly happening, and it's something that is important, and it's something that needs to be revisited and understood in order to do it effectively.
So I'm guessing the Institute doesn't have a political leaning.
No, we're nonpartisan. So we try to avoid dipping into politics in any way. Like I said, we have a philosophical foundation that goes back to natural rights and the way that the Declaration of Independence is written and its connections to the Constitution. So there's certainly principles that we stand on. But for us, it's not about politics. It's about helping students be equipped to engage and perpetuate self-governance. And so that's where we really focus in on.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome, especially with ChatGPT, just information's at your fingertips. And I think just being able to, again, know how to debate and know how to ask the right questions, that to me is the important thing to learn.
Yeah.
I hope the schools continue to teach cursive so they can actually read the Constitution.
Like
in the original text. It's kind of tough to do, but even so,
I'm with you on that, especially as a historian. The amount of cursive I've read in my life is extensive. We haven't gotten into that yet, but yeah, I agree.
Now, I imagine there's a cost to this, and I mean, are you guys funded, and how are you funded? Maybe it'd be a better question.
Yeah, we're fortunate to be supported by hundreds of different individuals and foundations from across the country. So private donations. Folks invest in our mission and help support the work that we do. So we don't have any cost to the materials that we have for teachers. All of them are available digital for free online, and they're all published as open educational resources, meaning teachers can take them, adopt them, and use them in whatever way they think is best for their classrooms. And we're really insistent upon that. We think it's critically important that they just have access to this stuff, and we try to provide the highest quality material possible so that they can take it, put it directly into their classrooms.
Your values have power when they're shared. Follow Carrot Top Flags for content you can use to inspire others and make an impact in your community. Together, we'll amplify stories that reflect the American spirit. Visit us on social media right now at Carrot Top Flags.
Wow. What are, I mean, do you have programs for teachers, or do you, what are some of your other programs, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously my title says content, so I oversee the development of all of our curriculum materials, but we have a whole bunch of great folks who do professional development workshops across the country. So they go directly to teachers and districts and do professional development education to help teachers just continue to get better at their craft. So that's happening all the time, all across the country with our network of over 85,000 teachers, which is incredible. And then we also have student programs as well. So the one that I love the most is our My Impact Challenge, which is a contest run every year where we look for students who are doing and invite them to apply civic work in their own communities. And so students apply and show just the incredible stories that they're having an impact, whether they're really big, starting their own nonprofits to do various things, or smaller things, which are just as equally as important. Bringing like we had one student who started a farmer's market in her town in Illinois because they didn't have one, right? So it's amazing the difference you can make if you get involved in your community. It doesn't have to be the biggest thing, but we want to encourage students to get engaged in whatever ways they can.
Yeah, I love that message. I mean, that's what Freedom and Glory is really all about, is small actions that can spark something bigger. I was going to ask you about how you all measure your impact. I mean, I know the number of teachers you're touching, like that's incredible, but are there other things, like you mentioned that story, are there other ways you're measuring your impact on young people?
Yeah, we're we try to hold ourselves as accountable as possible. So even our teacher list, we're constantly making sure that those are truly active teachers. So folks that are actually engaging with us year over year. We clean that list up every year to make sure that we're serious about that number. But we also measure and do research. We just finished a study with Georgetown University looking at the efficacy of one of our grade 3 to 5 resources. So that means how effective it was at teaching what we wanted it to teach. And I was excited to see that we had significant knowledge gains in both of the lessons that we had teachers engage with. So we're doing research studies all the time. And then we're also just looking at how it is that people are engaging with material on our website, making sure that they're looking at it, using it, reading it. We do pilot tests when we have new resources coming out, so we get feedback directly from classrooms to make sure that what we're building makes sense for the teacher in the classroom. We're not just building what we think they should be doing, but what actually is most effective for them. And then we are also just getting feedback as our programs team on the road and they're coming into contact with teachers. What more do you want? What more can we do? And so those are all ways that we're constantly trying to improve what we're doing and make sure that we're producing materials that meet the needs of educators, because they're doing really important work.
Is it growing, Kirk? I mean, are you seeing the demand for what you're offering growing over the years?
Yeah, it's incredible. And there's so many teachers throughout the country who are just so excited and desperate for really good resources. And for us too, we try to ground everything, like I've been talking about, our founding principles and civic virtues, but also primary sources are really big for us. So we don't always leave them in the original cursive, but we are big on using primary sources to ensure that students are engaging directly with the history, not just being told something, but seeing for themselves and working to make those conclusions. And teachers are really excited about it, and we're building momentum. We think next year is going to be a really big year for Civics, which is the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence in July of 1776, so 2026. And I think that's going to be a big year where the nation turns and reflects on who we are, where we've come from, and what it means to do civic education. So we're excited to continue to grow into next year too.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think there's tons of opportunities with America 250. I also, some of our listeners are businesses as well. I mean, that's how I got introduced to you all through Justin. Can you share a little bit about some of the offerings for how businesses can get involved and support you all?
Sure. I mean, anybody who wants to support us can go to mybri.org, and there's lots of ways to support us, reach out to us, reach out to me. I'm happy to make connections too with our development team, Justin being one of them. So we're always looking for corporate sponsors to come around alongside of us and support what we're doing, because we see that there's a real businesses have a very important civic role. And in fact, we're very fortunate to partner with the Chamber of Commerce Foundation and the Civics Beat that they do every year. We're the content engine for the Civics Beat, which is an incredible growing opportunity across the country. But the role that businesses play is something that we stress in our materials as well, that there are lots of ways to make a difference in your community, whether it be by petitioning the government, trying to make a change there, or by starting a business or a nonprofit in order to provide a need or a service that doesn't exist. And to us, it's all civics. That's all working to support the public, working to support the community. And so we love partnering with organizations and corporations who share that vision.
So for those, and it might be parents, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat this morning, but parents, students, teachers who may watch this podcast, not part of it right now, but would like to be. Same website, is that the best way to get in touch with you and get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. mybri.org. You can check out all of our material there. It's not just free to teachers. Anybody can, go and download our lessons. You don't even need an account. You can get access to all of it. We also have videos online on a YouTube channel, which is the Bill of Rights Institute YouTube channel. Lots of different videos on lots of different things that you can share out, get access to. If you're a homeschool educator, we've got lots of resources there for you as well. And yeah, any parent who's interested, who wants to engage directly with their students or just make a recommendation to their teacher, it's all there, free and available for use for anybody.
Awesome.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kirk.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you both for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thanks, Kirk. In talking with Kirk, it really stressed the importance, really, of knowledge, right? I mean, the Bill of Rights, how we were founded, and all of that. I'm not sure that's taught in a manner that it once was when I was in grade school. What did you take away from the interview?
Yeah, I mean, all I remember in school is more factual. I really liked their message, and I think, like I was saying, with all this knowledge at your fingertips, like with ChatGPT, it's like, how do you kind of bring that to another level? And I think, having the basis of knowledge, it inspires, confidence, it inspires action. I know, when students kind of understand their rights, they understand their history, they can better connect with their communities, come up with awesome ideas. And I think that's what Freedom and Glory is about, is how can we, inspire ordinary people to find a spark to take action.
Right. I once heard somebody being kicked out of a community pool because they didn't have the pass, and they said, I have a right to swim. Pretty sure that wasn't there, but I mean, it's that kind of knowledge, right? Having the right knowledge to know not only what your rights are, but what the government can and cannot do, and holding them responsible. And then, even when we talk about the flags that you make and how people rally around a flag and how important that symbol is, I think it's even more important when you understand the sacrifices and everything else it took to get to a point where we are today. So I'm glad he's doing it. I think it's a wonderful idea. Well, coming up in our next podcast, I'm very excited about this because this woman is really quite passionate about this. Her name is Barbara Walsh, and she has an organization with a wonderful idea to combat fentanyl poisoning, and especially our youth. You've had a chance to talk to her too. She's wonderful, isn't she?
Yeah. So, Barbara Walsh and her husband started the Fentanyl Victims Network of North Carolina after losing their daughter, Sophia, to a fentanyl-laced water bottle. And Barbara has really focused in on trying to promote access to Narcan,
Yes,
especially in public schools.
absolutely.
And I know they have a mission to get Narcan at every public school in North Carolina. So I'm really excited to talk to her.
I don't think she's going to stop till she does. I think when you meet her, you'll be on board with her and be willing to help. It's a wonderful, wonderful cause.
All right. Welcome to our Flags of Change segment, where we explore how powerful symbols are often born from the bold vision of just one individual. So Kirk is sticking around. We're going to talk about one of the most iconic flags in American history, the Star-Spangled Banner. So this flag inspired our national anthem and continues to symbolize resilience and unity more than 200 years after it flew over Fort McHenry. So, all right, Kirk, start at the beginning. How did this massive flag come to be? Who was behind making it?
Yeah, so I feel very fortunate. I live not too awful far from Fort McHenry, which is situated outside of Baltimore. And the flag itself was actually commissioned to be made. It's a garrison flag, which was something a lot of the forts at the time would have, to be raised for special occasions or holidays, or in the case of Fort McHenry, just in the morning, which is interesting. But the flag itself was commissioned sort of on the eve of the war when it was coming. And it was created in Baltimore by Mary Young Pickersgill and her flag making shop. So she had several young assistants who were helping her with it. And it was massive. So 30 by 42 feet. It weighed around 50 pounds. And it had 15 stars and 15 stripes, which was the requisite number that was for 15 states. There weren't 15 states during the War of 1812. There were a couple more, but that was the dimensions that they were made. And so that is the flag they created, and truly an impressive sight. I mean, just a massive flag.
Yeah, I mean, we sell flags that big now, but I just can't even imagine someone making something that massive. So, I mean, when we think about the War of 1812, I mean, I just can't get over the weight. I feel like it would weigh more than 50 pounds.
Yeah.
But, but anyways, when we think about the War of 1812, I know you mentioned Fort McHenry.
Yep.
Can you set the scene? What was happening there when the flag was commissioned, when it was raised daily?
Sure. So war had broken out between Great Britain and the United States over a variety of reasons. including impressment of sailors, the failure of British to evacuate forts, the frontier, lots of different things. It was commonly referred to as Mr. Madison's War because James Madison was president at the time, and he felt he had brought on this war. And it began in 1812, but it wasn't the most prosecuted war at the time. Britain was busy fighting Napoleon in Europe, but after the initial defeat of Napoleon in 1814, they began to turn their attention back towards the United States in the war that they're prosecuting there. And so they planned to attack the major ports of the United States, which included Baltimore. And so then in August of 1814, they made their move, first by landing and attacking the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C., which they occupied and burned on August 24th, which forced, famously, the government to have to evacuate, which included James Madison and his wife, Dolly Madison, who famously saved a portrait of George Washington from being burned in the White House. So after they burn Washington, D.C., they continue on north towards Baltimore. And so it was in September 13th that the British fleet anchored off the coast, off of Fort McHenry, and began to shell the fort, which is part of the perimeter defenses of Baltimore. And that sort of September 13th is the day that sort of the scene begins, I guess, is the day of the bombardment and when things played out.
Now, so how accurate is the national anthem? And he wrote this song, Francis Scott Key. I mean, I don't know all the words, and I'm certainly not going to sing it for you, but it kind of paints a picture. How accurate is that? Is that what he saw, and that's why he was inspired?
Yeah, it is. So Francis Scott Key was out in Baltimore Harbor, and he watched the bombardment from the British side. He was there trying to negotiate the exchange of a prisoner, someone he had, who he knew who had been taken prisoner by the British, and he was in the process of trying to get his freedom. And so he watched the entire bombardment. And so he had this experience of, throughout the night of the 13th, this just heavy, constant bombardment, both of cannons, cannonballs, and then something called Congreve rockets, which was something that the British were employing. And it was just relentless. And throughout that, the fort had an American flag over it, but it was a small, what they call a storm flag. So one that, you would expect. Storm flag sounds like it is smaller, getting beat up by winds all the time. That stays throughout the night. It's obviously dark. You have this just tremendous illumination. And then in the morning, dawn breaks. They lower that storm flag, and up comes that giant 50-pound, 30 by 42-foot banner, the Star-Spangled Banner. And so he sees this, and I think it's just truly inspired. And so begins writing down the poem just on back of a letter he had in his pocket. And then he completes the poem on September 16th. So a couple days later, then it gets published in a newspaper in Baltimore. And that's as the poem was then called The Defense of Fort McHenry. And so it was from there that it began to gain notoriety, a young nation standing up to the great British Empire and winning a victory.
I mean, it sounds like obviously it was well received almost immediately, but how did it rise to the national anthem status?
Yeah, so it was, and he did write it to a British song. And so it was, tailor-made for people to sing it and people to repeat it. And it, throughout the 19th century, it continues to grow in popularity. It's played at Independence Day celebrations, at military parades, at other events. But it's actually not until 1931, Herbert Hoover actually signed the law that said it would become the national anthem. And so since 1931, it's officially been our national anthem. But throughout that period, it was seen, again, as this tremendous, inspiring scene that really shows what it means to sacrifice, to stand up against forces who would be otherwise trying to subvert the government, and still sticks with us to this day.
It's inspiring. No wonder you're in the flag business.
Because
exactly. Wow. I mean, it means much more than sometimes it appears. I always believed the flag represented an event. How accurate, I didn't know. And listening to you, it really is, almost gives you goosebumps. It really does.
Well, I feel like, if you go to Texas or something now, there's 50-foot flags all over the place. But I'm just still stuck on back then.
How big was this pole?
Probably the biggest. It was, probably incredibly inspiring to be to be serious
Oh,
about it
yeah.
or whatever.
Yes.
But for sure, goosebumps. I mean, so can you go see the original flag?
Yeah, so the Smithsonian still has it. It's at the American History Museum on the National Mall. So they've done an incredible job restoring it over the years. So it's in great shape. You can go see it. They have a nice little exhibit. And if people are in the area and interested, not only in that flag, but in this event, I would also encourage you. The National Park Service maintains Fort McHenry, and it's an incredible place to go. They do a tremendous job. Even with the sort of the video that they show you has a moment where they sort of replicate that moment where the flag comes into view. And it's really tremendous. So I would recommend doing both, but if you're going to do one, go see the flag right there on the National Mall. And they have a nice exhibit there.
Well, I'd be flying that on the 250th anniversary.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think what's very fun about you're talking about the meaning of flags and how important they are. They were so important at the time as well, just because they do hold so much meaning. That the flag now is actually smaller than it originally was, and is missing a star because people would take parts of the fabric as mementos, right? Just to be a part of this moment and to see what it was. And I think that just shows people look to these symbols as more than just symbols. I mean, they really do have meaning, and they connect us to the past in a way that's really important. For us to continue as a country, we have to have things in common. We have to have a story in common. And that flag and this story, I think, are an incredible example of that. And again, just thinking about individuals who are taking bits and pieces of that flag just to be able to take home and hold close to them, I think is an incredible thing.
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, we will now be having Kirk on every episode. Thank you so much, Kirk. This is really, really interesting.
Yeah, it was awesome,
Appreciate you
man.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Freedom and Glory, Tales of American Spirit. We hope today's story inspired you to take action, embrace challenges, and pursue your dreams. To explore our collection of American-made flags and products that celebrate resilience and craftsmanship, visit us at carrot-top.com. That's carrot-top.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with others who appreciate stories of determination and hope. Until next time, stay resilient and keep your flag flying high.